Hello and welcome to another illustrious episode of Curiosity's Sake. In this episode I invite you to my Chataeu of Shovelwear. Please leave any and all expectations at the door, for they will not be met. In this episode I'll be doing something a little different for a Phoenix Games special and exploring a handful of games made by the company that I don't really feel have enough content in them for me to do a solitary video on any of them. It took me about 40 minutes to get all of the footage for the first 3 games that I had, and it took me less than 5 minutes to get the footage for the last one. Originally it was just going to be 3 games, but then I played Robin Hood the Siege to do the last video that I did, and as a result I kind of wanted to include that one as well because I don't see myself covering that as its own video anytime soon. The first game on our shit list, selection of exquisite shovelware, is Crazy Golf, which is actually able to live up to its title but in the most boring way possible. It's like the whole of the Shivering Isles level of crazy. It's full of batshit insanity, but you don't care because you're utterly bored. It's like psychedelics that also sedate you to the point where you are just a vegetable. Like, what's the point? To start off the crazy, this game opens up with the first Phoenix Games logo sequence that I've ever seen that actually uses sound. I'm not sure if it's the only one out there or if I just wasn't paying attention before to previous ones, but I swear that this is the first game that's actually bothered to give it sound, and as a result it almost has a professional feel to it. Now that is crazy. Ugh, we're about 20 seconds in and someone's already splooged on the screen. Gross. I do like that this logo is based on sperm and eggs, especially as the intro to what is meant to be a kid's game. Mommy, what are the white tadpoles? So the masterminds behind this crazy ass golf game appear to be nothing more but mere mortals. Mere mortals are apparently to blame for Combat Ace, Extreme Sprint 3010, London Cab Challenge, and a few others that I don't believe are listed on the Wikipedia article, but I swear I've seen this name before, like in another game that wasn't listed on this article. Something that's interesting about this company is that they apparently withdrew from game development and decided to help Danny Boyle make films. Sunshine, 28 Weeks Later, and Slumdog Millionaire were apparently thanks to the people that made this dog shit. That is not a connection that I ever thought was possible. But here we are. To think all I wanted to do was play some golf. We then cut to a loading screen that is a weird ass shark creature. It honestly looks like something from a Rayman game or something of that nature. It then gives us a loading screen. Loading Crazy Golf. I'll be upfront for people from other parts of the world. Crazy Golf is what some parts of Europe refer to mini golf as. Not sure if it's just a Britain or Europe thing or if it's ever referred to as such in the US, but as far as I'm aware, most Americans call it mini golf rather than Crazy Golf. But you didn't hear a word of what I just said there because your brain is stuttering trying to process what the fuck you're looking at. That's okay, the longer you look at this mess, the more baffling it gets. We've got a dog version of Cool Cat, a blue shark that looks like he's in trouble and just waiting to be punished, an airplane for some reason, a UFO for some reason, a sea mine, some weird fisheye abomination, and this is all centering around a golf course. I'm sorry, but are you sure that this game didn't inspire the fucked up trippy scenes in Trainspotting? That's the impression that I genuinely get from this shit. This is the sort of thing that you see as you're drowning in mouth-forming froth from a heroin overdose. After 30 seconds of loading, we have single player, multiplayer, and complete a game. Well, chance it'd be a fine thing. People with friends don't play games like this, so I'll hit single player. You get the choice of 3 reskins of the same dog, and all I can think of is that trigger happy TV sketch with the 2 guys in the dog suits beating the shit out of each other in public. I decided to stick with the default character because he resembles Cool Cat, and that's the closest thing to funny for me, so yeah, we're sticking with Cool Cat the dog. Select a world. Well, I only get one choice. Sea. It's not even Sea World, it's just sea. As if your only option is to jump headfirst into the sea like you're walking the fucking plank. 18 holes, 82 par, record 60. Well, I'm gonna fail. No. I need to have a positive attitude. That'll get me through this. Oh, fuck this, I give up. What is this level design? This looks like... well, it's crazy for want of a better word. Not in a fun way either, it's a fucking mess. I get that it's meant to be nautical in theme, but the golf course and the world around it don't even look like they're part of the same plane of existence. Also, the dumb shit going on in the background fucks the frame rate, so that's good. So the game's controls work a bit like those Tiger Woods games did at the time. Christ, remember those days? My favourite one was the 2010 edition, in which you had a mini game where you had to drive away from your angry wife as she tried to smash the fuck out of your car with a golf club. So you pull the club back with the right analog stick and position with the left one. Now, in the Tiger Woods games that were developed by, well, you know, one of EA's companies, so they actually knew what they were doing, this worked a treat. Even as early as 2003, this mechanic was nailed. You just pull back, push forward with the strength that you feel is necessary to hit off an effective shot, and away you go. In this crap game, however, the only moves are
power drive
or pathetic tap. Most of the time, you can only achieve
power drive,
so you end up just knocking it out of the park or fucking yourself royally. This makes the game immediately unpleasant to play. How do you make a golf game and fuck up the most basic thing in golf? Like, that should win an award at E3 or something, I swear to Christ. After a painful amount of fucking about, I finally get the ball in the hole and win. 3 over par, most of which was done an inch away from the fucking hole. After a painful amount of fucking about, I finally get the ball in the hole and win. 3 over par, most of which was done an inch away from the fucking hole. We then end up in some weird HP Lovecraft bath salt hallucination, where we're surrounded by weird hentai monsters. Great, we're back in Duke Nukem Forever again. This hole is somehow more painful and frustrating than the last. It has the same weird riff over the top of it that rots your brain, and the game overall is boring. To give it a bit of slack, golf is the most boring fucking thing on the planet, and they tried to make it fun. They just sucked at it and somehow made it worse. So I'm gonna give up on this wank 2 courses in. I'm sorry, but there's only so much crazy I can handle. And there's even less crazy golf that I can handle in a lifetime. And I feel like I've hit my limit of how many courses I can tolerate in my entire life. So I guess if you want to see more of this, join me in the next life when I reincarnate into a toilet brush and give it another shot. The next game is Fruitful, which is very dramatic until you realise that this is just a very literal description of the game through its title. It's named after the mechanic in which you basically allow fruit to fall from one side of the little cage to the other, by turning the cage around and letting gravity do the rest. You score points by letting the fruits touch each other in clumps of 3 and they vaporise into points, kinda like Tetris when you get a line. And that's basically the whole game. This is another game brought to us by mere mortals, who are somehow able to provide us with some real games. You know, compared to what the other companies at Phoenix were doing at the time. So far, I haven't really found any of their games good, but I'm not entirely without hope that I'll find one that's at least decent. We then go to this loading screen that looks like... Actually, I don't know what it looks like. Some sort of nightmare for sure, but it looks like the kind of nightmare you shake off and forget in order to retain your sanity. So, I already have a complaint about this game, and that's that this game and Crazy Golf have the exact same goddamn music. On loop. Endlessly. Until time ends and there's nothing waiting for us but some random jackasses and a cat weaving a tapestry about how 2 warriors fucked up. So we begin this nightmare in Ghost 1, where we find ourselves in some weird spooky place. Like the mini-golf game, shit is happening in the background, but it at least is consistent with the surroundings and doesn't bomb the frame rate as it happens, so it's definitely some form of improvement. Also, unrelated, but did you know that Phoenix Games attended E3 in 2004 and had their own booth there and everything? I wonder if they did one of those cringy presentations like Todd Howard often does.
Fairy Tales 2!
Alright guys, we know you've all been patient.
Fairy Tales 2!
We're about to reward that patience. This is our newest project.
Give us Fairy Tales
Took us
2, you
a
piece of
staggering
shit!
3 months to develop. Sniper Assault 2.
Fucking kill yourself! I want Fairy Tales 2!
Who's that in the background? Oh, it's Death. Hello, Death. What took you so long? Nah, actually, I just think it's Grim Fandango's dad fucking around in the background on a horse. Shame. So the background is always the same and only the foreground bothers to change, which works fine for me because the other game never bothered to have the same thing on screen for more than a few seconds. It all looks okay visually, but it does kind of lack any stimulation. Once you get used to the visuals, it just sort of all sinks in. It's the sort of game that you could see yourself going into a trance and just zombie playing it for hours, just to a complete lack of anything changing on screen. The gameplay is competent at least, though I have no idea how you'd fuck something this simple up, even if you were Phoenix Games. This game doesn't feel like a complete rip-off, and in the lower price tier, I could maybe see someone actually enjoying this one. However, I have played better puzzle games than this in a lot of aspects. I've played puzzle games that give you more feedback when you complete puzzles, and I've played puzzlers that control better and just generally feel more fun than this one does. A fun puzzle game can be addictive as hell, but 10 minutes into this one and I never wanted to see it again. If you've played enough of a game to last you a lifetime in like 10 minutes, then again, the game's not that great. The final thing I want to address is how the fuck does multiplayer work in this game. So you can play on one controller or two controllers, and you can play between 1 and 4 players, even without a multitap. You and your comrade are supposed to sit next to each other like conjoined twins, I guess, and hold half of a controller each, which is economical but hardly practical. You have the option to do 2-player with separate controllers, but 4 players have to be shared between 2 controllers. Actually, it's kind of just occurred to me that I've not tried it with the multitap, so it might be possible to do it with 4 different controllers, but it hardly matters. I'll give credit and say that the multiplayer works well enough. Players have to compete to beat the game, and as far as I'm aware, the puzzles don't stop coming until you've done them all. So the 4 of you are going to be there for a while trying to beat each other, at least in terms of speed and score. It's not a bad idea for a competitive mode in a puzzler, and it actually works decent enough without the game fucking up from having too much on screen at once. I was expecting there to be a lot of lag, but thankfully not. With some crippling self-loathing issues and hate themselves enough to play this, I could honestly think of worse things to waste our lives on. But if you are going to waste your life on something, you might as well pick the right thing, so pack your bags kids, we're going to the Funfare. Now, this game wasn't made by mere mortals, so Phoenix themselves as a developer are having a crack at it. To be fair, they were being shown up so far, so you know, might as well try and save what little reputation they got left. I present to you Rollercoaster Funfare. Phoenix Games' answer to that universal theme park game that everyone thought was hilariously shit. So I'm gonna be up front, which is more than this game is. You see that roller coaster in the background of the starting menu? Well, that's the only roller coaster in the game, and you don't get to ride it. The title is a lie. Speaking of titles, the box of this game makes it look like some sort of realistic theme park sim, rather than the collection of shitty minigames that it was born to be. It's kind of odd that they went to this level of deception, to be honest. Like, I don't know, do people want this more than the shitty minigames? Because quite frankly, I wouldn't want either. So the first game on the list is Airboats. You know, like at theme parks and fun fairs where you could just pilot motorized vehicles and just drive them around unrestricted with a bunch of randos from the park. Hell, they don't even check if you got any sort of license or whatever, just hop on, it's fine, don't worry about it. Insurance, what's that? So you race down this beach river as you find yourself trying to climb one hell of a learning curve, trying to figure out what the fuck this crap even is and how it works. Where are the controls on this thing? Is that your ass or mine? It's a very standard affair once you get the hang of it. It looks okay, I guess, and I have no major complaints besides the obvious one that this is the most basic bitch game I've played thus far. I win the race and, well, do my usual thing of putting in my name and then moving on to the next disappointment. The next game is in the castle, and it's mini golf. Oh, fuck. I've gone full circle. Wouldn't it be fucking sad if this mini golf mini game was better than the full game dedicated to mini golf? Well, prepare to be sad, because this game had the sense to just use the X button to determine the power of your shots, so it's actually doable and the courses look kinda nice actually. I mean, visually it looks fine with a nice friendly golf course atmosphere, and it's at very least consistent and not a complete clusterfuck like the weird HR Geiger fever dream that was the under the sea levels in the last game that we played that was about golf. There aren't any player animations or anything fancy like that on display, but the game functions well, and in all honesty I feel that's more valuable at this point. If I actually liked golf, I could maybe play this for a while longer, but I don't, and I got bored a few minutes in when I realised that this shit was never going to end. So I reset the console to get away from it because the pause button doesn't work in this game. You're literally trapped until you reset. Or maybe there's an end game, I don't know, but I'm not going to find out. The next one is Saloon. If this is fucking Deadeye Jim, I'm going postal. Well, thankfully it's an entirely different game, with pop-up cowboys that you have to shoot. There's also prostitutes, and I'm assuming gay prostitutes that you also have to avoid shooting. But I shot them anyway because I run a clean town and I don't even allow minor offences in these parts. I apparently shot 33 bad guys and 19 good guys. I beg to differ. There are no good guys in this, just varying intensities of scum. I don't get why these guys are bad guys when they were actually pointing their guns away from the living people in town. Just no pleasing some folk, especially when they don't believe in the Second Amendment. Well, time to hightail it out of here so that I can avoid that bastard Deadeye Jim when he comes through with his asset flip goons and shoot up the place again. Next we have Bumper.
Woo! Bumper cars!
It's really badly designed. Like the worst designed game of the set. The cars are really small, and unless you flat out give up, you're rarely going to hit each other because you're constantly swerving around one another. I decided fuck it, I got better things to do, and I just parked up and let them bump me to death. I regret nothing. Finally we have a football game, except it's not football, it's Foosball. So yeah, it's just a virtual version of Foosball. A virtual version of a virtual version of a game that's boring as fuck to begin with. It's like watching someone else jerk off, like what's the point? I got bored and gave up after attempting a best of 3 and finding that it wasn't out of 3. So then I tried best of 5 and it wasn't out of 5. I lifted my team up and just lay them face down to give my opponents an easy win, and it took them several minutes to even take that win because the game's physics are kind of awkward. Anyway, when I realised that this shit never ends, I said fuck it and quit, ending my time at the Funfare. So, did we like our time at the Funfare? No, we did not. Oh well. Well, lastly we're going to be looking at a game that I brought up last time in the previous video, which was Robin Hood The Siege 2. Now, unlike Air Raid 3, there is a first entry in this series. It was released on the PS1 and seemingly had far more basic look to it than this one does, but it still admittedly looks okay, especially for one of these things. It actually had scrolling, as in like the screen moved from side to side on the PS1, like the PS2 shooters did. Which is actually very impressive because the PS1 version of Dead-Eye Jim and its 10 million clones, for example, was locked onto one screen, and it wasn't until PS2 that you could actually move further around. The game visually looked okay for the PS1. It's not the best thing I've ever seen, but I've definitely seen worse. The PS2 version is an ever so slight improvement, in theory. Personally, I failed to notice much of a difference, and I think visually the first one looks a bit better. So there's apparently a story in this one, and it's different to the PS1 story. I think. It's basically the Robin Hood story, which we either all know by now or don't care enough to know. Besides, anyway, it has absolutely no effect on the game, so knowing it is not required. We just need to bring the justice back. We got this. It's fine. Anyway, the game takes place in a field with some pleasant music playing over this disorganised mess of a regimental march as you randomly take pot shots at the enemies and try not to get hit back. Sometimes enemies just pop up in the foreground with a frightful amount of detail. I mean, just look at this poor fucker. I kind of appreciate the mix of 2D and 3D assets in the game. It's actually quite reminiscent of Dead-Eye Jim clones, minus the 3D man running around at the centre of it all. And the fact that aiming and shooting is a lot better. This is a major improvement on that formula, if it's even the same formula, which in all honesty I'm kind of debated as to whether it is. It's hardly unique, and to tell the truth, this is barely good enough to be a Flash game, even by 2005 standards, but the game at least looks like it might have been acceptable at some point, maybe on the Super Nintendo or something as an arcade port. If I'm being really generous, that's the best praise I can give it, which is more than I could say for Dead-Eye Jim. It was nicer to play than any of those god-awful clones anyway. I like that when the enemy dies you get a nice upskirt shot. It's a nice little reward for the murder. Eventually I lost the will to live, both in-game and in real life, and I just got pelted to death with arrows and just stopped fighting back. And that's the end of that dog shit. Honestly, this is a collection of games that were kind of begging to be done in a collection, because, believe it or not, I'm kind of starting to run out of Phoenix games that have any real substance to them. I'm actually in doubt that I'll be doing this tradition past episode 100 if I ever reach that. As fun as reviewing Phoenix games is every time that there's a 3 in the episode number, because I don't actually know, there's no real reason, but I feel like it really is coming to the end of its course. I'll get through the ones that I have left, but truth be told, I could see this just being wrapped up in 2 more marathons like this. However, that's the future's problem, like Alduin. Join me next time as I go over something a little more familiar, and yet a little bit different.
You think you can out-rabbi me?
Professor Curious is a fucking spurg.